Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're doing another short video review of a movie. Today we're looking at Dandadan Evil Eye. Now, for context, I really loved the Dandadan anime, and last month, at the end of last month, about 5 or maybe 10 days ago, I think at this point, I did read through the first 50 chapters of Dandadan, which are all of season 1, all of Evil Eye, and then a few chapters or a few episodes of season 2. And I watched Dandadan Evil Eye at Cinemark here in Dallas on Tuesday at 7 p.m. It was dubbed in English, and because it was a Tuesday, it was a $6 movie ticket. I think I bought it online, so I actually paid $7.50 for it, and I went with my roommate and a friend of mine, and the theater wasn't packed per se, but it was definitely mostly full, which is great. Most of the time when I watch an anime movie, I end up either going where it's completely packed or where it's completely empty and I'm basically the only person there. That happened with Film Red the second time I watched it. That happened with most of the My Hero Academia movies lately. It happened with Transformers 1, I think, if I remember correctly. And I can't remember what else I watched recently that was like that. But the theater was mostly full, which is pretty good. I went to a larger theater, so we had the really nice leather seats that have the recliners on them. And overall, it was a great experience in terms of like how much I paid for it, how I enjoyed myself throughout the movie, and the comfort that I felt while sitting myself in the movie, right? But there was a few failings that I felt were pretty prominent with the movie, and I think one of the points that my roommate brought up was actually pretty poignant as well, and I'll get to it in a bit. But the movie doesn't require any context at all. Actually, if you've never watched the series, you can definitely go watch it without a problem. And if you've watched the series months ago, like when it was coming out, and you haven't touched it since, you can definitely go watch this movie with no problem. And that is because of the first issue that I'm going to bring up, which is that the first 35 to 40 minutes of the movie, maybe 40 is a bit much. I would say less than that. 30 to 35, I think, is probably correct. Out of a movie that's an hour and 30 minutes long, is recap. So there's two recaps. The first recap is a highlight reel for season 1. It shows you how Momo got her powers. It shows you how Okarun got his powers. It shows you how Arya got her powers, even though she's not even in the movie, so I don't know why they added that in. It shows you Arya's relationship with the Silky, and it does one other thing. I can't remember what it was, but it does show you basically everything up to the end of the Acro Silky arc and a little bit into the Chiquitita character, right? And then after you get through basically a recap of season 1, you also end up watching through the last episode of season 1, which is the start of the Evil Eye arc, right? So we get to see Gigi arriving at Momo's house. We see them getting sent off to Gigi's hometown, and then we see them arrive at his hometown. We see that really fun musical sting as they pan around the onsens, and then we see them, climb all of the stairs to his house as Gigi constantly goes chupa 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 chupa, right? And then we see them interact. We see Momo goes away, and then we see Okarun and Gigi play soccer together, right? Or pass the ball against each other, right? And talk about their feelings for Momo. And then this is kind of one of the issues that I had here. This is basically 35 minutes, right? The recap plus the episode that was episode 12 of season 1, right? The last episode of the season. The way that episode ends is with Momo potentially being assaulted, right? It doesn't actually show her being assaulted, and I would not classify the actions that happen as assault. I mean, not fully, because it doesn't ever go anywhere, but it definitely has that feel to it, right? She basically does get attacked or in some way stalked in a sexual manner, right? That's kind of the setup here. Momo's chilling in a co-ed onsen accidentally. Then 5 characters show up. These are part of the Taiko family. I can't remember what their name is. And all 5 of these guys are ugly bastard characters, right? They're all really strong, very physically fit, or at least they look really muscular, right? But they are kind of chubby. And they all kind of have ugly facial features, right? They get into the bath with her, and then they become gators, right? Which is basically old stalker men that kind of prey on young female, denizens of the onsen, and they start attacking her because she's dizzy, she can't use her powers, and then the season ends. Season 1 ends with her getting attacked. We don't know what happens to her, but we can guess that she leaves, right? The thing is that this is where the recap ends, right? And then the movie starts from there, the next episode, basically, because this movie covers the first 3 episodes of season 2, based on the timing, right? And the amount of breaks that were happening there. And the thing is that as we see that scene, we immediately see the scene again from a slightly different perspective. In this case, it's from the Taiko men. And I swear to you, this is probably the most well-animated part of the movie, which is disappointing because this is kind of the worst plot point. And the fact that it's a plot point that gets rehashed quite a few times, the fact that it's a plot point that isn't really very enjoyable or comfortable, and then it's one that gets such a nice animation to it, is kind of disappointing. Especially because this plot point isn't really that big of a deal in the manga, but it definitely is played for interest in the anime, and I don't necessarily like that. I think that that's probably a detriment to the series, and my roommate really didn't like it at all. He thought that it was kind of disgusting, and that it actually hurt his experience going to the movie because this was a plot point that is just too prominent in the animated version. And I agree with him. I don't necessarily care as much as he does, but I definitely agree with that viewpoint, right? And my other friend that went with us was like, Dandadan would be a 9 out of 10 if it didn't have so much of that stuff. And, I agree with that. I think that Dandadan is a 9 out of 10, but the reason it's not a 10 out of 10 is because of stuff like that, right? It just, in the manga, it's fine, but in the anime, because it is a visual medium and because they're trying to entice people a bit more, they do kind of play some of these elements that are not supposed to be played like that in that way, right? And I still find that they find that I don't quite like it, right? And so we get to see this scene rehashed again to the detriment of the movie, which I didn't like. And then the movie starts properly from there, right? So because Turbo Granny, hid in Momo's backpack, she's there at the onsen at the same time. And when the men are trying to attack Momo and actually, take advantage of her, that's when the luck powers that she has by embodying the lucky cat, right, activate, and the whole onsen falls on her, right? And when this happens, they basically get crushed by it, right? But they're not defeated or anything. They just kind of get slowed down. Momo changes out of these clothes. She picks up Turbo Granny from the bath, and then they run off to the house, right? And as they're going through the house, we see that Gigi and Okarun have managed to find out that the house has an extra room that is like a ritual room of some sorts. And we see that the Taiko family has shown up and that they are kind of abusing Gigi verbally, right, in a kind of Harry Potter-esque kind of way. The character is also dressed kind of like Aunt Marge anyway, so it does kind of have that feel to it, right? And then the rest of the family shows up. Momo kind of gets sidetracked because she's enjoying the city, and the family then starts to put pressure on Gigi and Okarun. Okarun has to prove that he's friends with Gigi, and he does this pretty well just by being observant. And then the family starts beating him up and beating up Gigi as well. And then Momo shows up. They have a big battle with the family. And then the family and Momo and Gigi and Okarun and Turbo Granny end up getting thrown down into this ritual room pit that turns into this kind of like a mirror dimension kind of thing where it just kind of goes all the way down. There's houses all the way down. And inside this pit lives a earthworm, kind of like a Dune Shai Hulud kind of character. It's actually a Mongolian death worm, which is kind of what the Dune worms are kind of based on anyway. So it's basically a Dune worm, plus it has like an eye like feel to it, like its mouth looks like an eyeball or like an iris, right? It has like a diamond, like an almond shape, and it has these weird tentacles around it that kind of emulate the sun, right? And it uses these, they glow, and it releases this wave of death, right? And initially, the Taiko family or the Tiko family or whatever they're called are able to kind of avoid attacking it. They think that it's a great snake god, and they're trying to feed Momo and Gigi and Okarun to it. It eats them kind of easily, and then the rest of the movie is Okarun and Gigi and Momo and Tuber Granny trying to figure out a way to kill this beast, right? At a certain point, we get introduced to another character, the Evil Eye character, which kind of looks like a boy that was really stretched out, and he wears these really funny tighty whities, and he has a really horrible disfigured face. And it turns out that he has the same effect on people as the Mongolian deathworm. It makes people want to kill themselves, and so his negative energy counteracts the negative energy of the other character. And so the Evil Eye is basically protecting them. And then we get to see the backstory. Basically, this was a spirit that came out of the sorrow of children, and then the children kind of vowed revenge, and then this revenge turns into this yokai spirit alongside the child, and so it becomes this Evil Eye, right? This thing that causes people to want to kill themselves because his hatred is focused on trying to kill a specific person, particularly the old lady Taiko character. And as Gigi learns its background, he kind of falls under its spell a little bit. He realizes that this creature is a lonely, sad child that needs a friend. And so Gigi, being a good guy, decides to be its friend. And this is when we realize that it was kind of playing him. I think the reality of the situation, in my opinion, is that it really is that way, right? Like this creature does want companionship, but it also is kind of a sinister yokai. So it wants to kill people, right? And so it uses Gigi's compassion. It takes him over, and I think that ultimately they will come to an understanding, but it's just kind of unclear how that's going to be, right? And so initially the battle was to get rid of the Mongolian deathworm, and then the battle turns into trying to survive against Gigi's awakened Evil Eye form, which looks really awesome except for the tidy whities. I wish they'd given him like sports shorts or something like that. I think that the tidy whities just don't work. Maybe boxers would have been better. I just don't like the way they look, right? It's just a bit too silly for how badass Gigi is supposed to be as the Evil Eye, right? And so Gigi kind of manages to beat the Evil Eye kind of easily to an extent. And then Okarun shows up to try to save Momo from Gigi. And then he and Momo come up with a plan. Basically, they need to push Momo out of the house, and they need to find a way to force the Mongolian deathworm up into the real world, up into the surface, so that it will dry out with the sun. The thing is that Gigi being there kind of complicates things, and Momo doesn't really know what to do about it, right? And so the rest of the movie happens. Gigi and Okarun are fighting. That's kind of the big kind of action set piece that happens throughout the rest of the movie at this point. And then Momo figures out a way to force the Mongolian deathworm out into the surface by burning the house, forcing firefighters to throw water into the holes in the house, and then forcing the worm out because it doesn't want to breathe water in, right? Because worms breathe through the skin or something, right? It comes out. Momo manages to force the landscape around her to be barren so that the worm is killed by the sun. It does die. It pukes out the Taiko family, and then it turns out that the Taiko family were the problem the whole time. And then the movie ends with the volcano in the background of this place erupting. And I don't necessarily mind that this is where it ended. I think that it's a fine kind of like hook for the end of the episode that it's supposed to represent. But this is kind of my second issue here. If the movie is going to be called The Evil Eye, and it's going to talk about the Evil Eye arc, it should finish the Evil Eye arc in the movie, right? When I picked up the movie, or when I was interested in the movie, my understanding was that this was going to be a movie that is about the arc of the story, right? So the arc was going to be contained in the movie, and then after that, the rest of the season would cover other stuff, right? The thing is that is not what happened. This movie is 4 episodes and a bit, and all of the episodes are for the Evil Eye, but they don't actually conclude the arc, which is disappointing. I think that it really fails at doing that, which is not great. I didn't like that. What I would have preferred is they give us a highlight reel for season 1. They give us a 5-minute condensed version of the last episode of season 1. And then they give us the 3 episodes that they gave us already. and then one more episode, which I think is enough to conclude the rest of the Evil Eye arc, because I don't want to give spoilers beyond the movie, but there really isn't too much else going on. Some characters arrive to help. They manage to defeat the Taiko family. I think they get put in jail or they get killed, I can't remember. And then they save the village from the volcano. And I think that in 24 minutes, that would be pretty doable, right? So that's kind of one thing I didn't like. I think that they could have just put in the next episode and put in the ending of the arc. I can see in some kind of way where the people that are in charge of the budget or kind of in charge of the marketing were like, if we do that, we're going to make it harder for people to want to watch the anime because they have already watched 4 episodes. That's a third of our runtime. I don't necessarily think that that's a good idea. I can see that point. But at the same time, maybe just release more episodes anyways. This movie should make a lot of money. It should kind of recover the cost for itself. The anime, the rest of the episodes could do their own work to recover their costs for themselves, right? I don't necessarily think that this was the best, and mostly because I think it was marketed incorrectly. Or maybe it was marketed the right way in order to get the most sales, but it was blatant lying, I guess, is kind of the issue there. When I bought the movie tickets, I thought that this was going to be a full arc covered in a movie, and that's not what it was. It was most of an arc covered in a movie and about 35 minutes of recap. So as an introduction to the series, I think it works really well. Actually, I think that if you're someone that likes the anime, want your friends to watch it, and they haven't really shown interest, but they're willing to go with you to watch a movie, this is the right way to do it. The movie will be out in theaters for another week or so, I think. So you can definitely get them to go. I recommend you go on Tuesdays or whenever your city has discount days at Cinemark, and I think AMC does them as well sometimes, or maybe they only do matinee. I can't remember, but I recommend you go out, watch it in theaters because it's a really great experience to watch Dandadan in the big screen. But I don't necessarily think that you should pay full price or you should pay more than $10 for it. I think that paying $6 for it was a very acceptable price. And that's why I don't really have too many problems with the movie, even though I do have problems with some of the content in terms of like how I would have liked it to go, right? I would give the movie an 8 out of 10. I think that if it had finished through the arc, I would have given it a 10 out of 10. And there is a bit of a caveat there because I dislike the fact that the onsen scene is played like 3 times in the movie. But I don't necessarily dislike the fact that it was played from different perspectives. I think that the right way to do it would have been to edit out the section from the episode that was previously released already, and then only put in the section that was the episode that is new, right? And so you would have the new perspective, but you wouldn't have to have rehashed the scene twice in the span of 5 minutes, right? I think that would have been better, but it doesn't seem like they wanted to do that. I think that they wanted to minimize the amount of editing necessary for the episode from the first season. So it is what it is. It's not a big deal. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I would have liked some things to change for it to be a 10 out of 10, but I still enjoyed myself. I still liked it. I still, had a lot of fun with it. There was also an extra bit of content there. We had a set of interviews with Abel Carona, I think is his name, or Cargona or something like that. And the Japanese director, I can't remember his name, but this is similar to what they did for, what was it, Look Back, I think is what it was, the Tatsuki Fujimoto movie. And I liked it. I think it's good. The thing is that they started it at the beginning of the movie and then they finished it at the end of the movie. The thing is that it's not a hype way to start it. I think that it would be better if they kind of kept all of it at the end. I saw some people leave during it, which is a bit disappointing, but at the same time, some of the stuff that they answered wasn't really that great. I think that the Abel guy, the Spanish creator, was kind of zonked out. I don't know if he was high or if he was just not interested or if he maybe just gets a bit nervous with, this sort of stuff. But he just didn't look all that interested. And most of the time when he said stuff, it wasn't really that meaningful. However, the Japanese creator was very good. I really enjoyed what he was saying. I thought that it was really good to see him, kind of really revere Tatsu-san, the creator of the series, but also be willing to experiment with some of the scenes and kind of change the tone a little bit based on some of the references that they wanted to make, right? So, I don't know. I think it was interesting. I enjoyed myself with the movie, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for when I bought the tickets for it, right? So your mileage may vary there. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me see, what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys later.